Well, we have been saying all along that there are future issues that have to be met. There's no doubt about that. That was the reason for the police levy that failed. What this does, though, is allows us to keep the flexibility of holding that money in the general fund, and if you need to, at a later point, transfer it into the bond retirement fund. There are we've got about $5.5 million between the general fund and the 1.6 and change that's in the bond retirement fund. So there are sufficient funds there to pay down for 2 years, if we wanted to, debt. There's absolutely no question that we must find ways to increase revenue. We've been saying this for a couple of years. The police levy was unacceptable. Council is going to have to sit down and we'll work with you to figure out what we need to do to increase revenue. But through 17, 18, 19, at the rate of revenue that we're bringing in now, the proposal that the administration is making will allow us to hold that money in the general fund, apply it to other things if necessary as they come up during the year, and if necessary at a later point, then transfer it into the debt retirement fund, the bond retirement fund to meet the debt. So it gives us more flexibility.
Okay, so what would, I'm just going to throw a number out there. Our general fund, in order for us not to lose any of our bond rating, in order for us to have a comfortable reserve in the general fund, what, $3 million?
There is no hard number. If you remember the analysis that we got at the time that Moody's knocked us down a notch, one of the things that they pointed to was the willingness of the city to look at revenue enhancement and in order to maintain general fund balances. I think it's a trend issue rather than a bottom line number issue. Take a look at that Moody's report. They're saying they feel that they were justified in only dropping it down as a result of going down to 1.5 in 2011, I think, because the city had committed to finding ways to generate more revenue. So it's not a hard and fast number. It's an analysis of how the city is approaching the situation.
Well, again, what I'm saying is, let's just say it's $3 million.
Well, I can't say that because Moody's didn't say
Just
that.
humor me. Say it's $3 million.
Well, you can answer your own question because I'm not going to humor you.
All right, then let's just go through the numbers. If we, in 2016, our deficit with the restructured debt, and let's just say our deficit, if we do nothing, if we change nothing in the way the city operates, our operating expenses, roughly $500,000 deficit. Okay, you can take that 753,000 because you'll still have 790 in the debt retirement fund, and you can maintain that $3,920,000. But then, in 2017, you've got 733,000. Your structural imbalance, now you really start dropping. If you look at 2017, at the end of next year, that's where this structural imbalance is going to take place. Now we're going to drop down to $2,000,004. 2018 we dropped down to $1,000,005. 2019 we have $548,000 in our general fund, and if you carry it all the way to 2023, we're $3,137,000 in the hole.
Tim, you just pointed out the obvious. That's what we've been saying all along. We have to do something. You've just told us what we've been telling you all along.
What are you proposing? You're the administration. What are you proposing?
Well, you're the council.
What are you going to do? What can you do? Let's create a scenario. Let's say we get.
I want to create a scenario.
I'm going to create a scenario. This
is a very simple question.
What if
either you pay it out of the general fund or you pay it out of the bond retirement fund? It's that simple. And then obviously we have to figure out
what good does it do us to balance the budget, value that we balance the budget, and then we go to the people and say, guess what, we need a tax increase. And they're going to say, well, you balanced the budget. Sorry, I'm not going to increase your taxes.
Well, how do you know that?
How do I know that?
Yeah.
I'll bet you $100 right now.
I don't make bets that I'm saying to you. Well, how do you know that that's going to happen? How do you know that that's going to happen?
Well, I looked at back in, let's see, when was it? Roughly 2010, when we were kicking this around about the refinancing the debt.
Restructuring.
And there was a statement by Joe Trippi who said, the people are not in the mood for any kind of a tax increase. Okay, now here we are 4 years later, and you're going to say, people are not in the mood for any tax increase. And I think the proof of that is what happened last November.
I think people are, I agree with you, people don't want to pay more tax. I certainly don't want to pay more tax. But if it's explained and pointed out, as we have been trying in the past, that this is a problem that has to be resolved in future years, I think people will understand that. So we'll have to disagree.
Okay, how do you do that?
We're going to have town hall meetings. We're going to talk about,
I won't do anything, Michelle. There's 10 people that show up for those.
well,
This again is a very simple question. Either pay it out of the general fund or pay it out of the bond retirement fund. All of this other stuff is speculative. Certainly we know that it has to be addressed. We've been telling you what you just told us. Everybody here knows this. You're telling us the obvious. The question for this council to decide is, how do you want to pay it? Do you pay it out of the general fund or the bond retirement fund? It's really that simple.
Personally, I like the proposal that was originally presented, where our general fund went from 3.9 to 3.1.
Well, that's what council needs to decide.
Still got that 1.6 in the bond retirement fund.
But we have 8 years of debt looming in front of us. That 1.6 has to cover somehow.
Probably going to have to cut expenses somehow.
And you can always transfer later from the general fund if you need to. It's really that
I mean, people are going to have to understand if we don't increase revenues, we're going to have to cut expenses. And I think we talked about it time and time again. The safety forces are 50-some% of our general fund. So where else are you going to cut? You're not going to get rid of a clerk in the building department and save $25,000.
Okay, what if we get to the point?
You got to make substantial
What if we get
cuts.
to the point where we have no additional revenue? It's clear.
I just said it. You're going to have to cut safety forces.
Okay, you get to the point where you may as well say 2019, because you've got 548,000. That's basically you've got nothing left. So you get to 2019, and the state comes in and says you've got 6 months to a year to right this ship. What do you do?
I'm waiting to hear. What are you going to do?
You're the mayor. Tell me
And
what
your
you would do. The
council.
state
Your
comes to
budget.
you and says,
And your council.
It's
You've
your
got-
budget, Rick.
And your council. Nothing goes
play
on
the
the
game.
ballot. Nothing
Yeah.
goes on the ballot without council approving it. This budget doesn't get passed unless council approves it. I can't spend a penny unless council approves it. You tell us.
well, I think you've got to look at protecting the assets of the city as best we possibly can. And I think that if we've got the bond retirement fund, I think we use that sparingly so that we can cover that 8-year period. And even if we cover the 8-year period, if we go through 8 years, we still don't have enough money. And that's not counting, that isn't counting the notes that we have to pay back, and that's not counting any kind of infrastructure or capital improvements in the city. That's how bad a shape we're in right now.
Again, you're a master of the obvious. This is what we've been telling you all along. You're telling us what we've been telling you. There's nothing new in anything you've just said. The question again is, how do you want to pay it? It's a simple vote. Take your vote and that's what we'll do.
General fund.
So you're supposed to not taking anything out of the bond retirement fund?
Well, if we take something out of the bond, well, yeah, actually that's what we should do. It should be a combination of both. So instead of taking 800,000 as was originally proposed, cut that in half. And take the balance from the debt retirement fund. We got to judiciously manage the money, otherwise you can't make the assumption that we're going to get any kind of a tax increase. You can't make that assumption. So you better proceed with caution and then try to get the tax increase. Because the likelihood, in my opinion, the likelihood of a tax increase, whether it's property or income tax, is going to be a tough uphill battle.
And I think we need to have conversations about reducing staffing levels in every department, including safety. The money's not there.
Personally, I think we should put some sort of initiative on the ballot this year.
I agree with that.
Everybody's saying the money's not there, we got $5.5 million.
Today it's there.
Today it's there.
Heights don't have
In
any.
3 years, it won't be
In a few
there, Mike.
years.
Council,
In a few
people
years,
on
we're
council
wiped
cut
out.
15% pay cuts in Parma Heights to balance the budget. We're not in that bad
In a
shape
few
right now.
years, we're wiped out. You know,
And-
this
and
year
I
we'll get
agree,
by,
we
next
need
year
to
we'll
put
get
something on the
by.
ballot in November.
2019 is the
I
year.
would
I
go
believe.
for that in a heartbeat. We need to put something on the ballot now. We're
I'm not going to disagree with that either. We need to put something on the ballot, it's right. We've been saying it right along. We tried it, we tried.
Thank you. We're continuing to give increases, and we're doing nothing.
We had
We're
a
doing
plan.
absolutely nothing.
We had a plan last year, we put it on the ballot, and people brought it, you said that it was a cheat,
Yeah.
which didn't help anything.
That plan was crap.
We would have $1 million
wasn't.
more. in
No,
general-
they are,
$1 million
they are
more.
33% of our,
No, it was not.
of our budget.
It's gonna be more now that we're giving raises.
not.
So-
There you go.
All right, so that's yesterday's news. So what do we do going forward? We have to do something
Revenue management.
because we've got less than 2 years. We have a year and 7 months.
Well, actually, you've only got until the end of this month to pass this budget. So why don't you focus on what's before you and decide what you're gonna do about this budget? Today's already the 16th.
Well,
You've got 2 weeks to
I've
pass
already
this budget.
expressed my opinion. Use them both. Use them judiciously. Then put something on in November. But don't, to say that we have a balanced budget and we've got $3,900,000 in our general fund and then go, but we need more money. Would you buy that? Would you buy that?
After
These are the people that are voting.
After what you just went through, you just described exactly why it's needed. I don't know why they don't. I don't print the newspaper. The newspaper
We've
reporter writes
told
the
Maura.
But
We've told
what
Maura.
got in the newspaper was we're going to have a balanced budget this year. That's what got in the
Everything looks
newspaper.
fine.
Everything looks
And
fine.
we're doing good. That's what
That's
I
right.
said before when it stood up.
Well, you
I
just
said,
heard him say
you're
why.
just putting a big facade over this whole thing just
No.
to get reelected. That's
No,
the
just
whole
heard
not
thing.
him
not at all.
say
We've
why
said
it's
that
not
that we have a balanced budget. However,
Yeah.
coming up in
We've
the
got
next couple of
issues
years,
coming
more
up.
cuts are going to need to be done because the state is cutting back more from our budgets.
And everything keeps going up in cost. It costs
We
more to
knew
do
this was
road
happening
work.
5 years ago. The state was going to be reducing funding. They started this 5 years ago. This should not be a surprise to anyone.
Exactly. It is not a surprise to anyone.
But now
That
it's
was
become,
one
now
of
it's
the
become
reasons we
crisis.
took $250,000 a year and put it into the bond retirement fund to pay the debt this year.
Not just this year, Mike.
Well, that's what
it's
I
over
got now.
8 years.
I was a councilman here when we did it for 2010. That's what it was for.
Okay, so why don't we just, spend it all, and then what do we do in the intervening 6 years? Then what do we do? Because we're not, obviously we don't do anything to cut the budget. We're gonna be rolling up $500,000 deficits plus the restructuring debt. So anyway you cut it, you're looking at roughly $1 million a year. I don't care how you slice it.
We took our money and we put it in the debt service fund to pay the debt. And I think that's what he's proposing to do.
And the debt goes through 2023. What do you want to spend it in 2 years?
What do we do after?
We don't put any, let's do it. We don't put anything on the ballot in November, so now we have one more shot at it. 2016 November. 2016
You gotta take
November.
the money
Now
out
we
of
have
3.9
problems.
million to go into the bond retirement fund like we've been
Well,
doing.
then-
Like
then-
they- No, you
Okay,
take
so
money
then
out of the general
that
fund.
3.9 goes to 3 million, and then the year after that it goes to
You're looking at
2.1, and then it goes to 1.
2018,
So you got, you're gonna have nothing.
What's your proposed split again, Tim?
I split the difference. I don't know.
Well, okay, which would be what? Enunciate it, please.
All right, take 400,000 out of the debt retirement fund, take the balance out of the general fund.
Which would be what? How much?
Well, we're talking 800,000. Do the math.
So 4 and 4.
Sure. Or 5 and 3. Or 3 and 5. To do something, but you can't just take it out of the debt retirement fund because that's supposed to fund these deficits coming up, and they're coming.
History has it that they've never funded future deficits, if you look at the schedule that Jack gave us.
We never had to refinance our debt before. We never did
That's why
that
we put
before.
money away to anticipate this year's spike, and there was a spike this year, 600,000.
It doesn't get better in the intervening years, it gets worse.
I'm not going to argue that. I agree with you.
So you can bleed down that 1.6 million really quick, and in fact, what's being proposed is we cut it in half right now. Then we got 790,000 for
And
the
you
next
still have
7
more there
years.
than you ever had since 2000.
And then you want to sell a tax increase. It'll never happen. Ask these people back here. It'll never happen. These people are fortunate. They come to the meetings. They understand what's going on. We got how many here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. Well, we got 11,700 people that live in Seven Hills and probably 5,000 voters. How do you get that
Nobody's
message
going
out
to
to them?
disagree that we need to enhance our revenues, Tim. I think everybody around the table agrees with that. It's just a matter of, as Rick said, do you want?
Well, again, I'm just gonna, and then I'm done. But we're sending the wrong message. You say you're balancing the budget, and we've got 3.9 million, but the rest of the story is out there that no one knows about. And everyone says, well, geez, don't things look great in Seven Hills? And my streets got plowed, and my trash got picked up, and we have police, and we've got fire. Everything must be great here.
People aren't hearing the whole story. They're not. And you're not gonna get 11,000 people to
No,
come
but we're not gonna get 10. We're not gonna get everybody, but it's the best thing that we can do is make sure that we send notices to everybody and get them in and try to explain it. Because sending it out in writing, I'm not sure is the way to, putting it out there in a form, I'm not sure people are gonna look at it. If we can get them in here, then they talk to neighbors, and that was obvious with the John Glenn thing. The neighbors came in, and they talked to their neighbors, and they talked to their neighbors, and they talked to their friends in Ward 4 at the rec center, so,
You can have a bunch of allies here for you.
But we've got a severe credibility issue.
Right.
That's exactly it. You need to establish your credibility, and you're not going to do this by pretending that this is an increase for the police department. That was the biggest BS,
It
and nobody
wasn't.
bought into that.
nobody
I'm
was saying
sorry,
it
I
was
don't
an
understand
increase.
your logic. Taking it out of one pocket and putting it to the other doesn't make any sense.
It all comes out of your pocket.
Yes,
It's only one pocket.
That's
It's the
why we're
tax-
here.
It's the taxpayer's pocket
That's
that
right.
it comes out of.
The
That's why
thing,
we're here.
the reason that I supported it as a police levy was because then that money could only be used for the police. So if we needed to make additional cuts somewhere down the road, the same as with our fire levy, we couldn't take that money away from them, and that paid for about half of their part of the budget. That's why I liked labeling it as a police levy, because then we can't use that anywhere else. It could have only been used for police. The same as our service levy can only be used for our service
no,
trucks.
but you can shift money in the other part of the budget. We understand that.
Did you vote for the fire
We're
levy?
not- What?
Did you vote for the
No,
fire
she
levy?
didn't.
No.
You didn't.
The fire levy.
Yeah.
You weren't here then.
Here's the point, if the police levy would have passed, we probably wouldn't be having this discussion today, because we have an extra $1 million in the general fund right now. So we wouldn't be having that discussion.
That's exactly right. We need $1 million a year.
And I mean, you asked for the facts. The facts are in 2010, before we did this, our budget was $9.5 million. It's now 8.1. So we cut $1.5 million off. We had $88,000 in the bond retirement fund. We now got $1.6 million in the fund. We had in 2010 $1.6 million in the cash reserves. Now we got $3.9 million. I know you don't like it, but that's the
all
facts.
fine.
You asked for the facts.
But tell me who's been in
It's
the,
the same.
to know
We're still
in
out
this
of
council
sync.
and administration for the last 10 years? Who's the common players? Why couldn't they have done that years ago. I agree
we
with Michelle.
Did it in
I agree with
2010
Michelle,
when we,
because they're from private industry. When you get into public, it's not your money, it's our money. That's why we're here.
if we didn't treat it like our money, we wouldn't have put a plan in place and bolstered. I just told you how we bolstered
Oh,
it.
don't start with me.
I'm just giving you the facts. If that's starting with you, then that's starting with you. But I just gave you the facts. You didn't like the
They're
facts.
not facts.
They're facts.
Oh, Mike, we did two
They're
things.
facts.
We did two things. We restructured the debt and sold the cell tower leases.
And we did
And that was-
buy
that was-
out.
And we
For
got
a
rid
long-
of
And we did that too, because obviously
and
we
we
were
got rid
blown.
of a lot of people.
That's right, we should have.
So,
We
again,
should've.
we cut it from 9.5 to 8.1.
But
So
we're
don't
still out
say we didn't
of, but we're
cut.
still out of balance. We're
Yeah,
spending
we
more
did.
than we're bringing in,
Okay,
period.
then we gotta cut more.
There you go.
If we don't,
It's gonna be police.
Then let's do it.
if we don't,
Well, if we don't, if
Right. Hey,
some revenue
Cut.
enhancement doesn't take place, that's exactly what's gonna happen.
I agree. 'Cause
And that's what I'm
like
saying.
I said, your safety
Put a
forces are
scenario out there, the
50%.
state comes in and says, you got 6 months to get your house in
Your
order, what do you
safety
do?
forces are
Well, we're taking
55%
over.
of the general fund. So that's where the cuts are gonna have to come. If the people don't pass the revenues, they gotta do that. If they don't pass
That's
the taxes,
exactly
they gotta
right.
understand it. That's why we tried to do it. And you
And
supported
that's
that.
what, but,
You
yes,
supported that.
absolutely, but that's the reason that if we do a balanced budget, and we make everyone think that everything is great, and then we go to them and say, we need more money.
We're not gonna make
They're
everybody
not
think it's
gonna-
great.
they're
We're
not-
gonna paint
they're
the
gonna-
picture
they're
what
just
it
gonna-
is.
oh, right, I've
We're
heard
gonna
that
paint the
before.
picture what it
You
is.
guys haven't been painting the picture to what it is.
Yes, we
Every
have.
quote is bullshit. Every quote in the paper is about how great we are financially.
No,
Every
right
single
now we
quote.
are solid, but
We're
we're
not,
still,
right?
we are solid. But we're gonna need money in the future. I agree with you on that. We're solid right now.
If nothing,
We got $5.5 million. I know you don't like that, but we got
no, I
$5.5
think it's
million.
great, but that money's gonna be gone soon if nothing changes.
I agree, I agree.
So we're not in good
I
financial
agree,
shape.
I agree.
We're not. We're lying to the residents, guys. And
And
some
then
of
if we
us
could have
are.
supported it, we could
This
have had
is-
$1 million
yeah, it's
more maybe in the general
I thought it
fund.
was wrong.
Yeah.
There are other ways to do it.
We got notes that we have to pay off. It's gonna cost us 1.3 million a year to pay off notes, because you're gonna roll them out so many years. And then the state's gonna force you to do it. Then you're legally obligated to them. And you can't keep rolling it over, and you can't not pay down on it, you've gotta pay something down on it. So, you got all these different things you've gotta put money into.
Do we have the money available to pay the notes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're gonna pay down 400,000 in notes. Right? Is that the plan? And then roll over the balance.
Yeah.
Where's that 400,000 coming from?
When we adopted the 2014 capital budget, the proposal that I put in front of City Council was to retire those notes over the 4-year period of time using the cell tower rents.
Okay,
It's
and we have,
$433,000 a year for 3 years, which is 1.2, 1.3, and we received $200,000 when we signed the lease. It's $1.5 million. Which is
and our
the
notes
amount
are
of-
3,000,008.
Okay, of the $3,000,008, $650,000 of it is the Broadview Road note, which is being rolled and paid down by Broadview Road. $723,000 of it is the Hemlock Creek note, which will be paid off when the Hemlock Creek project is completed and the special assessments are certified. $750,000 of that is the Pinnacle Park TIF note, which will be paid off with Pinnacle Park TIF funds as TIF funds come in. So take
And what
those
is-
off.
and what
Take
is-
those off, Tim.
What does that leave us with?
You tell me. You got the numbers in front of you.
Hemlock, 735. 2014 road program, 1,000,002, almost 1,000,003. Pinnacle Park, 750,000. City Muni Complex, 170,000. Technology and Communication, I don't even know what that is, 120,000. Department of Public Safety, 115,000. That's 3,170,000. So take off 7, 14, So that leaves half. So we got 1.5 million we still have to pay off.
Which is the amount of the cell tower notes. The cell tower lease.
And that went in where?
Oh, God.
No, don't. Oh God, come on. Where did the cell tower notes go? Where'd the money go? Again.
It's going into the bond retirement fund. $200,000 went in last year. I'm sorry, the year before, $200,000 went in. $433,000 went in.
Okay,
in June.
those are the notes. And that bond retirement fund also has to pay off the debt restructuring. Right? Right?
Sure.
So we got one point whatever million to cover that, the notes, and we still have the debt restructuring. There's not enough money.
Sure, there
We
is.
can't
There's
do it.
3.9 in the general fund. Short term. Everybody is saying the same thing. Long term, we've got to find revenue.
We
There's
got
no
less than 2
doubt
years.
about that.
We got
Whether
less
we
than 2
call it
years.
a police levy or we call it whatever, we need more infusion of revenue.
You got
There's
less
no
than
doubt
2
about
years.
that. Okay, but
This
we
should
have time.
This should have been, something should have been done 4 years ago.
Well, we put a levy on last year, and,
Resoundingly.
yeah, but what's your point?
The point is, it's going to be a tough sell. And if you balance the budget and you say to these people, we're doing all these wonderful things for you, and you go to ask them
We're
for
not
money,
saying that.
they're going to say, no,
We're not saying that.
no.
We're not saying that.
You
We're
are saying that.
We are not saying that. We've been saying all along in the years going forward, there's a need for more revenue. That's been out there for years. That hasn't changed any.
I've yet to see anything in print that says that.
You need to look closer then.
I see nothing in print
It's out
that
there
says
regularly.
Yeah, it says we need more money. Oh, and by the way, our budget is balanced.
It's out there regularly.
And oh, by the way, everything is just great.
Well, I don't say that, but it's regularly out there. We have to bring in more revenue. There's absolutely no doubt about that. You're telling us what we already know.
I'm telling you, I don't agree with your tactics.
Then vote. Vote. Take a
All right, I
vote.
already told you what my position's out there. It's up to the rest of council to figure out what they
Either
want.
you pay it out of one fund or the other, but you gotta pay it.
So Tim, you want to amend the budget to pay, to do what?
Take a portion out of each. Take 500 out of the general fund and
No.
take 3 out of the debt retirement fund.
The debt retirement fund was set up specifically for this purpose. If there's gonna be a compromise on this thing, I think we need to take more out of the debt retirement fund. The more you take out of the debt
I've been sitting there
retirement
listening
fund,
now. The more you take out of the debt retirement fund now, less you have 6 years down the road.
okay,
I like your poison, Tom.
You're exactly right. Pick your poison. Pay it out of one pocket, pay it out of the other. I've been sitting here listening into this. If it'll get 7 people to vote on this thing, and I mean 7 people, you want to split the difference, and nobody's going to make us say, "Oh, look, you didn't balance the budget." Nobody's going to make a political issue out of that because that'll be the next shoe to drop. Okay, if we're going to compromise on this thing, the debt retirement fund was set up specifically for this purpose. I could see if you want to compromise to get a 7+ vote, and nobody's going to make an issue out of, "Oh, you didn't balance the budget." I could see taking more money out of the debt retirement fund and some money out of the general fund. If that will get a 7-7, vote, fine. That'll do it. But you have to have some kind of a consensus on that. And I would think at this stage, since we beat this thing to death, I would think that we ought to get all 7 of us on board for it.
That's not going to happen. I just think you could always take money out of the general fund.
Oh,
Or
I'm
the
not-
bond retirement fund, but you can't take money out of the bond retirement fund if you got an emergency and transfer it somewhere
Mike,
else.
I'm totally agreeing.
That's locked in.
Mike, I'm totally agreeing with you. Okay.
I know why I put the $250,000 aside.
And that was one of the smartest things I've seen in this city in a long time. Okay, but I'm totally agreeing with you. But and I think it ought to come out of the debt retirement fund. But if Matt and Tim will get on board for a majority of it coming out of the debt retirement fund and some percentage of it coming out of the general fund, and that'll get us a 7 vote, fine. We've talked this thing to death.
Vote however you want.
Jeff, what's your recommendation?
It's 6 of one and a half a dozen of the other. I agree that we do have debt service that is increasing. We do have $1,700,000, $600,000 available to service that debt this year. Leaving the money in the general fund does provide the city flexibility. You can subsequently transfer that money into the bond retirement fund. You probably will have to do it in ensuing years, as Tim so eloquently articulated. It's a matter of, and it's not like there's $4 million in the general fund, and it's not like the mayor is going to run through $4 million, given the scrutiny that the city council gives everything that we spend. So I'm just having a hard time trying to understand and follow the conversation.
Okay, I think we got a couple options here. A, we're going to need 4 votes to pass the budget as presented. If somebody wants to make a motion to amend it, we could do that. So, I mean, that's the discussion that's taking place. We have to do something by March 31st.
It's fair.
Fair?
It's
Oh,
fair.
there you go.
It's fair.
I got very poor.
You got very poor?
Is there 5 votes to pass the budget as presented? Tim, I know yours is no, you're on the committee. Carol? How many yes?
One point I want to bring up is the political aspect. This current administration is going to be running for mayor, I assume, next year. This year. That term runs through 19. He's proposing this, and I assume he wants to win. He'll have to deal with it through 19.
Come 2019 is when we're really screwed.
I know.
So if he wins, he walks away when it gets really bad.
Well, that'll be your chance, then.
Yeah, to sweep up all the ashes.
He could walk away now and it's really bad too.
Not as bad as it will be then.
Still bad.
This,
Okay, well, I don't want to get into speculation. What do you support, Jeff?
I'll vote for it as it is.
I'll vote for it as is. I'm willing to talk about taking some out of the general fund if we can come up with a number and a solid consensus. But I'm going to vote for it as is if I don't see something reasonable in that line.
I'll vote for it as is, but I would like to say that I think it's a mistake. I think we should split the money between the two. I think we should take some of it out of the general fund and not balance the budget because we're not really balanced, and some of it out of the debt retirement. I would like to see it go that way, but I will vote for it this
Let's
way.
make an amendment.
Carol, what did you say? I didn't hear.
I'll be voting for it.
Again, I need to know what we're basing the numbers on, the split. If that's what you want to do, I need to know how you come up with the 60-40, 50-50, 70-30. I need to know how we come up with that number.
Well, I had told you that I at least would like to have the $250 that we've been putting in the debt retirement fund, that I would like to see that come out of the general fund and not take that portion out. So that's the number that I'll go with, that's what I would like to see happen, just because we've been doing that every year, so I'd say take that portion out of the general fund and the rest of it out of the debt retirement.
240. That's what we've been
Out of the
putting.
general fund, that's what you've been putting into the debt retirement fund, so basically you would still be putting that into the debt retirement fund because you're paying that out of the general fund. I do like the flexibility in case there are emergencies, so that's
We could
why.
have another hurricane this summer for this year. Nice to have some money.
So I got a proposal to take 250, to amend the budget by taking $250,000 out of the general fund and transferring it into the bond retirement fund.
I think we should split the difference of what the original proposal was and what it is now.
I just want to add one more thing to this. I just asked Jack what the expenses were for the Bankowski litigation out of the general fund. This last year, I think we pushed about $100,000 for that
Easy.
litigation alone. So factor that into the decision too. The matter's now in the Court of Appeals. We don't know how much longer it will linger, but I'll stand corrected if the number isn't correct. Pretty close to $100,000 in 2014.
That's in the past, and I heard Freeman say it's probably not gonna cost us.
Well, you don't know until you know. We just got
Yeah,
a notice.
you don't know until you know.
We have a hearing on April 15th. So that's still out there. That's true. We don't know what the litigation will cost until it's over. So I don't understand the humor, but we're getting sued, as you know.
Oh,
Matt, you and Tim are the ones that are holding out for the general fund. What's the split you're willing to do? Michelle said 250,000 out of the general fund and the balance out of the
I don't know,
retirement.
because we don't have a plan to move forward. We haven't agreed on how we're gonna try to bring new revenues in.
Okay, what do we want to do now? Do we want to, yeah, let's just move on. I mean, I'll accept what Michelle says, 250,000, or else I'm just gonna vote to accept the budget as presented.
I'll accept that. I want to hear if Tim and Matt are going to compromise on it. Because of,
Well, that's the same question. What will we be doing about new
Matt,
revenues?
we need to focus on this because this budget has got to be in by the end of the month. Now, we have said, and I've been fairly quiet here, we have said all the way through that we need to get revenue enhancements. And guess what, folks? It's either going to be a property tax or something to do with the income tax. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Okay? People in Seven Hills don't like to pay taxes. They don't like to pay more taxes. You know, we have one of the smallest, frugalest governments in the county. Okay, God bless us. But at some point, you know, when you run in frugal right from day one, you can't run frugal all the time. Sooner or later, you got to pay the piper, and it's time to do it. That's going to happen. It has to happen. Okay. Because I'm not going to sit here and see a city I've been affiliated with for 40 years go down the drain and get absorbed by Parma or become Seven Hills Township because people don't want to pay taxes, any taxes. This is crazy. All right, so it's either going to be property or it's going to be income at some point. But right now, we got to get a budget in by the end of the month. So my question again is: will you support Michelle's proposal?
No.
Okay. So right there, since we're not, will you support Michelle's proposal? Okay. So right there, you've answered my question. I'll go with taking it out of the debt retirement fund, the original program. Next.
That was my compromise too. There's no compromise, there's no compromise.
So it's 5-2. Let's move.
It was gonna be 5-2 anyway. But should we pass on an emergency at the next meeting? Yes. We call a special meeting.
Emergency.
Yeah.
We can do a special meeting this week to do a
No.
reading.
He said it can pass on emergency 5.
Somebody wants to make hay out of it, pass it on emergency.
As long as there's 5 votes.
We've
You
been.
gotta have 5 votes.
I'm fine.